The recession still has a grip on the economy. First quarter GDP shrank at a worse than expected 6.1% pace. The economy shrank at a worse than expected 6.1% pace at the start of this year, as sharp cutbacks by businesses and the biggest drop in U.S. exports in at least 40 years overwhelmed a rebound in consumer spending. The Commerce Department's report dashed hopes that the recession's grip on the country loosened in the first quarter. Economists had expected a 5% annualized decline. Instead, the economy ended up performing nearly as bad as it had in the final 3 months of last year, when it logged the worst slide in a quarter century, contracting at a 6.3% pace. Nervous consumers played a prominent role in that dismal showing, as they cut back spending in the face of rising unemployment, falling home values, and shrinking nest eggs. In the January to March quarter, consumers came back to life, at least a little, boosting their spending after 2 straight quarters of reductions. The 2.2% growth rate was the strongest in 2 years. Stronger demand for big-ticket durable goods, including cars, furniture, and household appliances, led that increase, because things do wear out. People still have to have things. Consumers also boosted spending on clothing, shoes, recreation services, medical care, gasoline, and other energy products, but not on food, where spending dipped slightly. Still, though, the consumer rebound was swamped by heavy spending cuts in virtually every other area. Businesses cut spending on home building, commercial construction, equipment and software, and inventories of goods. Sales of U.S. goods to foreign buyers fell or plunged as they retrenched in the face of economic troubles in their own countries. This is a worldwide recession, a worldwide economic crisis, or depression, or whatever have you call it. And even the federal government trimmed spending. It was the first time that happened since the end of 2005. All told, the economy logged its worst 6-month performance since at least the late 1950s. The sharp cuts underscore the toll the housing, credit, and financial crises, the worst since the 1930s, are having on the country. The recession, which began in December 2007, has taken a huge bite out of national economic activity and taken over 5 million jobs, 5 to 6 million jobs, and still rising. To cushion the impact of the downturn, the Federal Reserve has cut a key bank lending rate to a record low near zero and rolled out a string of radical programs to spur lending. The central bank held its key lending rate at a record low of between 0 and 0.25% and decided against taking any new steps to shore up the economy. Aggressive action has already been taken, although the Fed has left the door open to future action if needed. More bailouts. Wall Street shook off the weak gross domestic product reading anyway, and is still rising, albeit taking smaller gains. And all these are still more signs of the times. The world, or this country, is still in a recession, or whatever you want to call it. The recession was bad in the first quarter, but theoretically, hopefully won't be as bad going forward. However, the recent outbreak of the H1N1 flu, or the swine flu, which started out in Mexico and has spread to the United States and elsewhere, poses a new potential danger. If the flu gets worse and stifles trade and forces consumers to cut back even more, those negative forces could worsen the recession. Before the flu outbreak, the Fed chairman said the recession might not be as bad at the end of the year. If, and it's a big if the government succeeds in stabilizing the shaky financial system and getting banks to lend again. In the first quarter, there was much weakness in many areas. Spending and home building fell at a 38% annualized rate, the most since the second quarter of 1980. Businesses cut spending on equipment and software at a 33.8% pace, the most since the first quarter of 1958. Inventory reductions cut 2.79 percentage points off overall first quarter economic activity. But with stockpiles cut, any pickup in business sales would help increase production and bolster the economy in the current quarter. Still though, U.S. exports plunged at a rate of 30%, the biggest drop since the first quarter of 1969. The government also cut spending 3.9%, the most since the end of 1995. Theoretically, even if the recession were to end this year, but it might not, the economy will remain feeble and unemployment will keep climbing, government officials have said. The Labor Department has said that all 372 metropolitan areas saw their jobless rates rise in March from a year earlier. The national jobless rate is now at a quarter-century high of 8.5% and still climbing, and is expected to hit at least 10% by the end of the year. It could probably rise even more in early 2010. And the Fed predicts unemployment will stay elevated into at least 2011. Some economists don't think it will return to normal until at least 2013. And more layoffs are being announced daily. Anyway, all these things are more signs of the times. This country, United States, is still in a recession. And without jobs, it's going to be very hard to have a recovery. Some economists are saying since the news is less bad than it could be, but things are getting better. What does less bad mean? Well, that doesn't mean there's a recovery going on. It just means, like, yes, it could have been worse, but it could still get bad or get worse, couldn't it? There will be other things happening, many other things to come still. And once again, all these things or signs of the end times, transition days. And now once again, all these are more signs.